And we want to thank you very much for joining us today. I'm James Just. We've got Richard Fields in the middle. John Cameron is down at the other end. And this is our Thanksgiving show. So we'll give a message of thankfulness at the end. But, first, I'm not sure there's a lot to be thankful for other than, friends and family at the moment. We're learning about the high cost of those lockdowns, not just the economic cost, the human cost. Out of, what was it? The suicide deaths out of Ohio. The suicides are now the leading cause of death for children 10 to 14. We saw a couple weeks ago, I think we had a discussion about how in Wisconsin, the suicide in the largest county of Wisconsin, the suicide rate has doubled. And now we have word that nursing home neglect deaths have surged. 40,000 nursing home deaths, not due to COVID, due to neglect or despair. They say 40,000. A new study has come out and said there's 40,000 nursing home deaths, not due to COVID, but due to despair or neglect. And these are
read a headline in the Bee saying that murder rates in Sacramento are up. So it's all over the board. Not to mention starvation deaths in the third world.
Yeah. And that's something we should talk about. And I throw this number around. It's so big that it's kind of unbelievable. World Bank and I think World Bank said 150 million people are going to be pushed into the lowest level of poverty. And to comprehend how low that is, that's less than $2 a day to live on. So, again, a lot of these people live in agrarian economies and they're almost hunter-gatherers. Not really. If there's anything to hunter-gather, they'd be hunter-gatherers. So it doesn't take much to, push you from subsistence level to starvation level in those environments. And to see it happening in wealthy countries where, the nursing home deaths and all the unintended consequences, which, pretty soon, if you let unintended consequences go long enough, they're now the intended consequence. And I don't know why anybody in the right mind would, want to kill off a bunch of people in nursing homes. But
as long as it happens before Inauguration Day, it's not an issue. After Inauguration Day, I predicted that the vaccine would happen shortly after or on Election Day. I was 6 days off. It happened 6 days later. I also will now predict that all of the draconian government shutdowns on the coronavirus will end on Inauguration Day shortly thereafter.
Well, that stands to reason. And then the whatever kind of bad economy that the new print it and ship it to the blue states government blames on Trump will be Trump's fault, and anything that happens on the bounce, even though that's happening now and would go gangbusters if they would take these controls off. I mean, people, despite a lot of people sitting on no money and having to tap their savings and borrow and run up credit card debt and all the rest of that, there's a lot of people sitting on money. There's jobs that can be done that can't be done because of COVID. There's certainly pent up desire and the ability to fulfill it. I wish I would have bought cruise ship stock at the bottom. It's about 3 or 4 times off the bottom right now, but I still think there's an opportunity. So, yeah, it's crazy times, and the things that I think we're going to talk about science behind this thing at some point. Did you want to do that now?
Yeah, we can skip to it. Go ahead, we can skip to it, John.
Well, what bothers me is that this thing has cost what the U.S. government has thrown. I don't know how many trillions. You got the number handy, Richard? How many trillions? 3 trillion, 5 trillion, something
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends what number you're looking at, but it just suffices to say that it will triple or quadruple the national debt in a matter of months.
Yeah, and then
well, not the national debt, but it'll vastly increase the national debt. It'll go from 20 some trillion to 30 some trillion in a matter of months.
Yeah, which is pretty scary. So based on all of that money being thrown at this thing, and now we're seeing some good come out of it. Amazingly, the horrible, evil pharmaceutical companies are now that they've busted the locks off of them and let them actually do some research and some testing, have come up with a vaccine that in the past would have taken years to create in how many months? I don't know, 6 months, something like that. And
Well,
so
keep in mind that other than Pfizer, they were all getting heavily subsidized as well.
well,
And they've been
without
working on COVID strains for a long time, so they didn't start from ground zero. They had
That's
a baseline to start from.
Well, anyway, the point I sidetracked myself, and the point I was trying to make is, with all that money being spent, we still don't, they're still wondering whether it's droplet or aerosol. There's studies out there that indicate that wearing masks is completely useless, and other studies that indicate that it isn't useless. There's countries that have had virtually no lockdowns that have done better than countries that have had tremendous lockdowns. The numbers that I've looked at on curfews, in some places show no good at all. Other places show that cases increased, decreased, and increased. So
explain to me how a curfew has any effect whatsoever. If anything, a curfew should enhance the spread of the virus if it's airborne, because it's packing more people into small places like grocery stores in a shorter period of time. It's absolutely insane. The only argument I can make the only argument I can understand is that with a curfew, bars, which tend to lower inhibitions, will be closed. That's the only thing I can think of that would argue in favor of curfews. And if that's the case, have a curfew on the bars. Let the rest of us go about our business and work night shift.
About half an hour ago, I just saw a news conference by the World Health Organization that just released another study that shows lockdowns do nothing. They studied 160 countries, balanced and there's no difference on the grand scheme of things. Yes, some you got the outliers, but the grand scheme of thing is that you can't tell the difference based upon just the lockdown. Lockdowns by themselves don't do anything.
Yeah, and same thing with masks. The Marines did a study where they took 1,500 or so Marines and made them do all of the social distancing and mask wearing and hand washing, follow all of the recommendations. 1,500 Marines did. Another 1,500 Marines didn't have to do anything. And that if they're Marines at Paris Island, they were following orders. They were doing exactly what they were told to do on both sides of the equation. It turned out that more Marines that were masking up got coronavirus than the control group who were not. Likewise, there was a study out of Denmark, and the Marine study was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. It's not some conspiracy theory. The study out of Denmark showed essentially the same thing. It showed that masks cannot be shown to protect people. It showed that there might be a statistical, might being the operative word, a statistical correlation between spreading. If people have coronavirus, they spread it less than if they by wearing a mask than not, but only to a minor degree. So the science is suggesting that nobody knows, and if anything, none of this stuff is working. But if you listen to the politicians who are not scientists say, "I'm following science," they don't. They're just throwing science out as a word to intimidate their opposition. That's all it is.
Yeah, it seems to me like they're. Oh, I'm sorry, John, but it seems to me like they're just doing something, so they can be said to be doing something. Hey, look, we're trying, we're doing something. Whether that something is good or bad or it doesn't matter because they're doing something. I think we can only assume that the government is using secret science, and somehow they found out that the virus actually sleeps, and it understands time zones throughout the world. And it actually goes to sleep at 10 o'clock at night and doesn't wake up again until 5 o'clock in the morning. But then you'd want to be out while it's sleeping. So I'm confused. I really can't figure out. I don't want to say this. Yeah, I do. That people.
But you're going to anyway.
I'm going to anyway. maybe even a couple of times in a couple of different ways, just for fun. When governments can do whatever they want to do, people who work in government believe that doing something, forcing people to do something that they would not normally do has benefit. Whereas the three people on this panel and the other three people watching, no, there's more than that, are of the mindset that letting people who are generally rational take the knowledge in that they get and make their own decisions on how they spend their money and where they choose to go and how they choose to eat and protect their family and all the rest of that stuff has better outcomes. And we know that in every other arena, allowing people greater choice, let me rephrase that, not allowing the government to take away choice always has greater benefit. And why wouldn't it in the health world? And then when you look at, and I don't know if I've written this down somewhere and put it on a blog, I should. Government is one size fits none. It's not one size fits all, it's one size fits none. You know that the IFR, which is the infection fatality rate for this thing, for children is like 1/10,000th, maybe even 1/100,000th of what it is for people who are 85, people who are up to the age, I think, of 20. Yes, they get the disease. Yes, they're being called super spreaders, but I don't see no evidence that they are. They don't get sick from it. So why are they under the same rules for people who do get sick? It's because one size fits none for the government. And then we have, basically based on the initial first knowledge in the state of New York, their brilliant governor decided to take sick people and send them back to nursing homes so that they can.
Don't knock the Emmy Award winner, okay? He got an Emmy, so he's
Governor Cuomo got an Emmy
because his press conferences are so well done that he got an Emmy for his press conferences.
But it is his. Oh man,
I'm not kidding you.
No,
I'm just, it shows you that maybe we should all not watch TV.
Except for this show.
What's that?
Except for this show.
Yeah. Well, I would call this something better than television. I don't have a name for it yet. But the horrors of all of this data being out there and the contradictory data are just, if I believe that people in government were actually smart enough to keep a secret and communicate that secret to other people in government, I would think that there's intent to keep the populace locked down. Wait, there is intent to keep the populace locked down as long as there is. It's their nature. It's in their nature to want to control things and keep people from doing what they want. That's how they get their jollies. But it's not working. So let people make
not working for the stated purpose. It works very well for the underlying purpose, which is to make sure that you have a meek, sheepish population that will follow orders no matter what the orders are.
Yeah, and a population that's always fearful, so that they are open to anyone who will go in and take away their fear. Yeah. And I would rather live in a place where there's hope. Anyway, we went off track on this, I think, a little bit. But the complete lack of science, and even though all the studies are out there and they're publicly available, the people in power who've assumed power, and fortunately, there's a whole bunch of really good liberty-loving lawyers out there who are suing their pants off right now. They've assumed power that they don't constitutionally have in this country. And I think they're doing the same thing in Germany and all the rest of that. You think our protests against lockdowns are crazy? I mean, they had to turn water cannon on people in Berlin. The people in Berlin, people in Germany have a kind of a racial memory of letting those in power have their way, and they're not putting up with it. And I'm hoping that very, very soon, people in this country do the same thing.
Well, when you talk about listen to the science, we have to be careful about which science. Mm-hmm. It's initially they tell you don't touch your mask a lot because you're going to help spread the virus, and then they issue orders to, take your mask down between every bite to eat if you're eating with people. So they're not. Which science are we going to follow? But you're talking about Germany, not the protests in Germany. What good are orders if people aren't following them? We've seen, what was it, 23 sheriffs around the state of California that said we're not going to enforce any part of this governor's lockdown, this latest governor's lockdown. They're just not going to do it.
The lockdown or the curfew?
The curfew.
Well, this is the curfew.
The curfew, and then the lockdown in general, you can't have more than, 3 families over for Thanksgiving.
Well, unless you're the governor of California and it's one of your cheap bribers, lobbyists, birthday celebration at a $700 a head without wine restaurant in Napa called the French Laundry, then it's okay.
Well, yes, if you are, some animals are more equal than others, and if
this is the case with unenforceable laws in general. An unenforceable law is something that can be used selectively to go after your enemies. That's what an unenforceable law comes down to. Anybody on the road at 10:01 is subject to being arrested right now, and if you have, if you're not one of the sheriff's, if you're one of the sheriff's enemies, the chances of being arrested are probably a lot higher than if you're one of his top campaign contributors. That's the way it works.
Yeah,
I agree.
Well, so we'll go back to get some national news. Biden introduced some of his picks this week there, Richard, and I know you have some opinions on that one.
Yeah, just moments ago, Department of State, he nominated, or he announced that his nomination will be Tony Blinken. Tony Blinken is a longtime Biden assistant, worked for him heading up his I think staff when he was in Congress or in the Senate on the Council of Foreign Relations, or not the Council on Foreign Relations, the Senate Foreign Policy Committee, whatever they call it.
Foreign Relations.
Foreign Relations, right. Homeland Security is going to be Alexandro Mayorkas. This is not a bad nomination. He's the guy that implemented DACA. DACA is an administrative, bureaucratic way of actually doing the right thing, which is letting people who immigrated to the U.S. when they were, preschool and have never known the country where they were born, allowing those people to stay and be educated and become continue to get a job and operate essentially as legal citizens. That's probably a good pedigree for Homeland Security. I have no problem with that. Avril Haines is will be named for the Director of National Intelligence. She's enough through the ranks, CIA, apparatchik. She'll probably change absolutely nothing. Continue to do what our security agencies have done all along. So that's not encouraging at all. For UN ambassador, he named Linda Thomas Greenfield. She's a veteran of the Foreign Service, so probably not too much change there, at least change from the pre-Trump days. For the NSA, National Security Agency, Jake Sullivan. Jake Sullivan was actually his campaign advisor on foreign policy. So it's interesting that all of the people he is naming are, for the most part, Biden loyalists, people who have been longtime cronies of Joe Biden, as opposed to Kamala Harris cronies, and I think that's probably a good thing.
When you get done, Richard, I want to throw a question out.
Okay, one more. For the presidential envoy on climate change, John Kerry, and he's calling this a cabinet level appointment. I wasn't aware that we had created a cabinet for climate change. Did I miss something?
I think we should create a cabinet for climate change and put all the people who believe that any of this regulation is necessary or will accomplish anything in the cabinet, lock the cabinet and throw the key away. That's my thinking. But we could talk about climate change ad nauseum, and I think I probably have. Even if we did everything that the crazies want us to do, their own numbers say it will make no difference. So why should we do anything? And if I remember correctly, we're still in the Maunder minimum. But anyway, back to the Kamala Harris thing. So when President Harris takes over, but I'm guessing that Biden is enough of a politician and a sociopath like all the rest of them that even though we all believe that the deal was he'd get elected and then Kamala would take over, it sounds to me like he might try to stay for the long ride, even at age, what is he, 77 now? Is he 77?
77 be 78 on the nomination.
Yeah, he's got a lot of cronies riding his coattails, and they don't want to lose their power, so they're going to prop him up. It's going to be weekend at Bernie's
It might already be weekend. I haven't seen anybody. I think the president of the United States should at least. Oh, maybe not. If they fail the mirror test, we should elect them because they'll do less trouble. And if they pass the mirror test, then they can't get elected because they'll cause a lot of trouble. But there's going to be some power stuff going on. It's my understanding that Hussein, the people that refer to Hussein as Obama, are in really kind of holding the reins of power in the Democratic Party, but maybe Biden's making a break for it, or maybe Kamala will just replace them all. I mean, what do you guys think? Will she accept all these people?
Well, it depends on how long Biden can stay actually in the Oval Office, and that'll depend on whether the cognitive decline that we have observed or think we have observed, whether or not that progresses or is real in the first place. It depends on whether the Biden crime family, and by that I mean his son Hunter Biden and his two brothers, who have managed to turn Biden from a thousandaire to a millionaire in the 4 years since he left the vice presidency. That's one faction, the Biden family. The other faction is the Kamala Harris Obama coalition, and there's a third faction too. I forget who it is, but there's any number of the Bernie faction. The progressive.
Yeah, the progressive faction. We actually have a question from the audience about the Bernie faction. What impact is that progressive wing, essentially, of the party, the squad, the BLM wing, going to have on this Biden ticket? Are they going to be able to pressure him? It doesn't look like they're having much luck pressuring him, really.
Well,
so far the nominations have been foreign policy nominations, and that's not really in the wheelhouse of the progressives all that much. They're for all of their talk about being the party of peace or the people of peace, they are really the party of redistribution, and that's when Secretary of the Treasury, Federal Reserve Board nominations, Department of Labor, those kinds of nominations will tell you whether or not the Bernie Bros have any sway.
Well, based upon their success in the election, Richard, you pointed out that they only had their way in safe, drawn for them districts. And, anytime the hardcore progressives, which I hate to call progressives because it's regressive, basically it's, government like kings used to have, ordering people to do things and redistributing wealth, didn't do so well. And I don't think it played very well at all. And even the New York Times has said that the Democratic Party needs to look at its mission statement and maybe pick more popular causes. So, for the New York Times to say there's a problem, but that kind of brings up something else. They're interviewing these people. Well, it's the so-called experts interviewing themselves and wondering how more black people, especially black males, from 6 to 8%, was that 33% increase, or 6 to 9, 50% increase, and more Hispanic males voted for Trump this time than last time. And I think they're losing sight of the fact that even though the guy's a clown and a kind of a mean-natured person at heart, I think, at least if you're going to be president, you should be nice. Did some things that directly benefited Hispanics and blacks that the mainstream media, which controls all the messages we hear, won't take into account. And that's, reducing regulation and cutting down on the barriers to starting and running a business. And those are the things that directly affect the people in the lowest rungs of the economy. And when the lamestream media looks at it, they're talking about, they did some surveys where apparently, 60% of black people really firmly believe in border controls, and 90% of them, or a crazy number, actually want to allow no immigration because immigrants take jobs from young black men. So that's what the lamestream media wants to point at when they point at, why Trump picked up some voters from those areas. But I think people looked around and said, well, what's he doing? He's actually cutting back on this mass of regulation and that's keeping us down, because that's what's keeping people down. The barriers between them being able to go out and pick up a paintbrush and go to work painting houses are huge.
Well, as LP vice presidential candidate has said during the campaign, when you actually talk to people in inner city neighborhoods, black, Hispanic, or whatever, their biggest complaint is, "Hey, I can't. I've got a side gig that I have to keep." Side hustle that I have to keep hidden in order to do because of all of the regulatory licensing, occupational permit requirements that government puts in my way. And I think point well taken that the pullback or the lessening of regulatory fervor under the Trump administration has worked in the favor of minorities.
All right, guys,
it's interesting to see.
We've got a minute left, and I wanted to make a chance. We're airing this on Thanksgiving, and I wanted to make sure we get an opportunity to thank everybody. I wanted to thank you guys, Richard, John, the whole Counterpoint team, Gail, Tony, everybody who's worked on Counterpoint in the last 30 years to give me this opportunity to come out here.
That's a long list, man.
And yes, it is, and I don't know it. So I want to thank everybody have given me this opportunity in this last year to be able to do this. It gave me a lot of training that helped me on my campaign and has helped me on personally and going off and doing other adventures. And so, I wanted to make sure I thank you guys, the Counterpoint team, Access Sacramento, our viewers, the people of Sacramento and around the country who have, quite frankly, been supportive of this journey.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank everybody that shares this on YouTube, shares it on Facebook, shares it on Twitter, shares it on LinkedIn, and comments favorably from time to time. I'd like to thank everybody that watches and refers the program to a friend. We really appreciate the opportunity to have this 30-year legacy.
And I want to, as the show ends, want to just say thank you to one of the few rights we have left, which is the ability to express our hardcore leaning libertarian opinions without the Gestapo kicking the door in.
And
you'll know that right has gone away when this show somehow or another disappears.
And with that, we have got to go. Thank you all for watching. You can visit us at libertariancounterpoint.com. Have a wonderful holidays, and please remember to love everybody.
And happy Thanksgiving to everybody.